Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Alcox and I'm here again with the Merrimack Institute for New Teacher Support from Merrimack College. And today I'm so happy I am joined by Dr. Ann Gatling and she's going to be discussing place and project-based learning. Dr. Gatling is an associate professor at Merrimack College and also the co-director of STEM education. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yes. Oh, and thank you, Amanda. Yes, I am so excited to be able to share with you some tools that have helped me as a teacher for all of these years. And
awesome. Yay. Well, thank you. And please share your screen whenever you're ready.
All right, here we go. Oh. So, whoa, I wasn't on the right place.
Perfect. You're good.
Okay. All right. So anyway, today's presentation, we are going to be looking at thinking about project-based learning or place-based or experiential education. All of these terms I share with you because when we think about project-based learning, you hear all of these different things. But in today's presentation, what I wanted to do was use the place-based education as helping to give us the foundation of understanding for it, because I think they're a little more advanced in how they think through it. And I like the place-based education framework because it helps teachers of all grade levels, pre-K all the way up through high school and even college, to think about how to bring something like this into their own teaching. So anyway, so I want to show you how it can connect to your curriculum and help you to expand it and make it even more alive and energetic. So I want to read this. This is the only thing I'm going to do that's long, but I think it's an important thing so we're all on the same page. Place-based education is the process of using the local community and environment as a starting point to teach concepts in language arts, math, social studies, science, and other subjects across your curriculum. It emphasizes hands-on, real-world learning experiences. This approach to education increases academic achievement. It helps students develop stronger ties to their community. It enhances their appreciation for the natural world and creates a heightened commitment to serving as active, contributing citizens. Community vitality and environmental quality are improved through the active engagement of local citizens, community organizations, and environmental resources in the life of a school. And as I said, I have seen this work, and I have personally had it work with kindergarten through 6th grade, and I've seen it work all around the world, all the way up through college. So we will keep going. So in their model, they show it kind of a local to global model, and our understanding of place begins first with encouraging students to reflect on and better understand themselves and their role in the community. So places can be interpreted through economic, socio-political, and ecological lenses as students move from local to global, allowing for deeper transfer and application, understanding of content and skills. So if you see this image here, you can see how, and even as our social studies curriculum tells us, with young children, we start with who are we? What is our classroom and our family like? And then we move into the school, community, region, and eventually the world in some cases. So I would like to start with my story. What did I do as a teacher? And when I was a teacher up in Alaska for many years, as a 3rd grade teacher, there in Soldotna, Alaska, it's on the Kenai Peninsula. I'm heading home to Alaska on Friday, actually, with my family. Anyway, so we're going on a field trip. We went on a field trip to town, and what I did was have all the parents, each parent took a group of students. They selected a portion of town, and you can kind of see the town there. And they visited it and said, what's good about this part of the town and what might be some improvements we could do? And so we gathered all that information and we presented it at a big community gathering. But what our finding was, we realized that every inch of the Kenai River in our town either had private homes or businesses with no public view or access to the river. It was only for the fishermen who flew up from the lower 48. So we realized that our community needed a park space for families. And this is what we presented to the community. Well, then I went away to college, came back up, and I received these same students in 6th grade. And so I found that my little 3rd graders were no longer engaged as 6th graders. They were bored, they weren't engaged, and I was like, what am I going to do? And so then what I decided I needed to do was help to get them engaged in something. And so I said, what is it that our community needs? And through conversations, they began to realize, oh yes, we did realize that there's nothing on the river. It's no public view. But maybe there was one piece of land that had come available in those few years since they had been third graders. It was the Department of Transportation land right there on the river with all the sand and chemicals to keep our roads safe in the winter. Well, now EPA had deemed it unsafe and it had to be remediated for 15 years. Well, what would it become after that? DOT couldn't be along the river anymore because it was damaging our salmon stream. So they sat and brainstormed. They sat and thought, well, we should have water slides and pools. And I said, well, how long are we going to be able to use this in Alaska? And they sat there and they're like, oh, you're right, maybe 2 weeks. And I said, if we're lucky. So then finally, after a lot of conversations, they said, wait a minute, maybe we should ask the community. Maybe we should see what they want to happen in this piece of land. So we sent it out. We put questions that we thought would be important. We put our little mascot at the bottom, and we sent out 500 surveys. We put up signs all over town. Your choice matters. Help us decide the design of our new park, our new DOT park, Department of Transportation. Just fill out the survey. Pick up a free survey at Sodotan Elementary and fill it out by Valentine's Day. Well, when we received them, we received like an 85, 90% of them. And we were shocked. And people wrote all kinds of things. The town was starving for a place to have a community and have a gathering. And so here we were reading them and marking down, well, what should be in there? What should be in there? And so then we took it to, there was a big, we won a big award as a community, and a huge celebration with all the community leaders, and even the governor came, and a lot of people were there. And so here's Madison talking with we made a scale model based on what everyone had said. And we said, well, there should be a gazebo, there should be park benches along the river. And so you can see the river, you can see the river here. And no, let me go back, oops. You can see the river and the park benches and the little paths, and you can see that there's a little, there's a little pond back in here. And here's the little skating pond and a little statue in the parking lot. And so we shared it with everyone. We were on NPR. We did a little soundbite on there, and the kids talked about the power of this actually happening. You know, what if we could really pull this together as a community and make this happen? And so it really got a lot of energy and momentum. And so eventually the remediation got it so that they could start putting in some of the paths. And here's going to be the parking. And here's the main highway from Cooper Landing all the way down to Homer. It takes you up toward Anchorage. But anyway, so here it is. And then you can see this is breakup. You can see the snow along the river here. And here you see, here's a car auto place. You know, it's just that. But here's the future of our park. And so the city was really starting to plan, and that model of ours sat in City Hall where everyone could see it. It was always on display. And so then, all these years later, this is what came about. Here are the gazebos that people wanted. This is a Wednesday market. We have the Wednesday market every Wednesday in normal times. And so we have all the different, little arts and food and all kinds of things. And over here is the river. We now have a beautiful walkway that goes for several miles right along the Kenai River. And this is the Kenai River that comes up all the way from the mountains, and the salmon go up this Kenai River up into the mountains. And it's just beautiful to see. And here's the fireweed. But one of my students said in his report, as a sixth grader, it's going to be cool when the park gets built. I'll remember that we were the ones who started it. And I still, when I go home and I'm in those grocery stores and a student will see me, I will sometimes don't even recognize them. I'm like, Miss Pfister, our park came alive. It came alive. All of our ideas, they're all there. Could you see it? And they're so excited. And I have to say, this did not start to become this. This started with, maybe we could help the city think about an idea. We had no idea how much we would have something to go. Another idea they had was, well, maybe we should make the paths turn into ice skating rinks, and then the pond turn into an ice skating pond. And so the last phase was in winter 2018, and they put in the tracks for ice skating on the paths. And then they have winter festivals all winter long. I'm sad I don't get to go to them, but they still shovel and have the picnic tables there for everyone to do concerts and things. And the river, this is during breakup this was probably like in November when it's just starting to get frozen up. But anyway, so you can see where this all went to. Now, impacts on students. Students see the relevance of their learning and the connectedness of subjects. they develop self-confidence, they develop their verbal and written skills, and they come into contact with role models who motivate and influence the students. The students thought about, what do we need? Who do we need to contact? If we want to think about this, we brought in city planners, landscape folks, we brought in engineers, we brought in artists who helped us think about what should be one of the statues out by the parking lot. And they wrote letters. They responded to some of the people who sent their addresses on those surveys. They were the ones who thought about even doing the scale model. What should the size of the gazebo be in relation to the park benches? And how do we build the park benches? And should we, how to make the river look like a river? All that, everything was just, it kept growing and building. And one speaker would recommend another speaker to come in, and parents would then think about something that they could help us with or something. And so it just kept growing from some simple little idea. I had no idea it would be as big as it would be. And so how do you start this kind of things? You're going to find out that you're already doing levels of this. So first of all, project-based learning has on the front of their website, okay, full disclosure here, you have to get in a state of mind. This type of learning isn't an approach you master in a matter of weeks or even months. It's a journey that unfolds year over year as you develop your practice, your confidence, you learn it alongside your students and your co-teachers and grow with experience. When I was a third grade teacher and we did the parents going to every part of the community, I didn't do that on my own. I was a new teacher with two veteran teachers who were unbelievable. I'm still dear friends with these two teachers. It was together their ideas who helped me get the confidence, well, maybe we could do a field trip with all the parents and we all identify a different place of town to go to. And so I worked with my co-teachers to kind of think about how to grow. And then when I was a sixth grade teacher, I had already built that kind of foundation. And I also wanted to tell you, we had the Merrimack College is an Augustinian college, and we have Augustinian high schools in Nigeria. And so I was supposed to go to Nigeria last summer, but it was a little too dangerous. So I did a Zoom with them. And so some of these slides have pictures of Nigeria and some of the Nigerian artwork, and their students have been doing a lot of project-based learning. It's helping to keep them safe from getting involved with some of the dangerous groups. They're getting more engaged in the learning, and they're doing projects where their students are helping them with their food, the growing of their crops. Right now with the pandemic, they only have yams and rice. And so the growing season's just coming. And so they're using some of the methods that they researched for better methods for growing the fruits and vegetables without having such harsh chemicals. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, it's been exciting to see what the high school teachers have been taking with some of their things they learned. But anyway, so now, what are levels of project-based learning and applications to the classroom? This is how you can kind of see, where am I and what could I maybe think about at each of these levels? So first of all, level 1, a classroom visitor. Make partners in your community, bring in relatives of your students. When you think about that open house, whether this fall that open house is virtually or in the classroom, however you do it, say, these are my main concepts I'm going to be teaching in language arts, social studies, and science. And then think about, if you have someone you know or an idea of an organization we could contact or ways to make this really come alive for the students, please write it down on the list. I will put it down by areas of content, and you can just write down your ideas and your phone number or email and just let me know. That has been so helpful to me whenever I've been a teacher, to see and that helps our English language learners. If they feel like their knowledge and their understanding is understood and respected, and they do have, every one of our students have something to bring to our curriculum. So this is a great way to bring it to life. So classroom visitors bring a lot. Field trip and service learning. So what could you do with a field trip? Now I know even here in North Andover, some schools can't do field trips, but there are virtual field trips galore and they keep growing. And so Amanda's going to have some links for you to see some of those field trips that you can think about. Where could you have the students go? Google Maps or some program with Google takes you can go anywhere in the world and really explore. But when you think about it, you have to do some planning. How does this connect with your curriculum? What are some questions you can ask the students and hold them accountable for exploring or thinking about as they're going through this field trip or this virtual field trip? If it is on ground, what safety considerations do you need? And what's the follow-up once you come back to meet with the students again? Well, how will you debrief on this and think about next steps based on that particular field trip? And maybe it's service learning. What are some things that you as a class could maybe do? Whether it's visiting like a nursing home, or maybe setting up a communication or singing or something you could do with nursing homes or food banks or something like that. There's all kinds of levels of this. And even within your school, if you're back in school, what can you maybe do? Some of you have been doing things with collecting the food that goes to waste, or the composting that's part of school, the recycling in school. All kinds of those things are all part of this kind of teaching. So here's the virtual field trips, and like NOAA has beautiful ones, PBS has wonderful ones, anyway, and then there'll be more on there. So level 3 is context curriculum, and this is where you have a class inquiry into questions that are relevant to the community. So out there in Seattle, the 7th graders were really trying to get a sense of the history of the people in this part of Seattle. And so 29 middle school students were asked to research, represent, and discuss local urban sites of historical significance on an interactive web platform. They learned more about local community events, people, and historical forces. And they became increasingly engaged with the material and enthusiastic about making connections to larger issues and processes. And in the final session, students expressed interest in participating in their own communities through joining nonprofit organizations and educating others about their community history and daily life. And so they researched African Americans, women, Filipinos, Japanese, and Chinese. They conducted interviews with local individuals who were associated with the group in some way, including historians, writers, academics, community members, and community activists. And so it was just phenomenal, the kinds of projects that they came up with. And so it was doing the oral history. And on this point, one link that I will have Amanda put in there is StoryCorps, where students can interview a senior in their lives of some sort, a grandparent or an elder. To the questions that StoryCorps has on there are absolutely beautiful to capture understanding, and it's trying to create that story of the fabric of the lives of Americans, wherever they come from. And so something like that could be something bringing into the context curriculum of what's the history of people in our own community. And Library of Congress is collecting all of this too, but the interviews themselves would be so beautiful for your classroom. And continuing this here, the student projects included an interview with a former Japanese internment survivor, mapping the Black Panthers headquarters and their contributions to the African American community. And so anyway, now level 4 is impact investigation inquiry to local topic to practice research and contribute to local, the local, I don't have base of knowledge. And so this is what Leslie College has been doing with one of their children's lit courses. And they are working with teachers in Ethiopia, and they realized that there were very few books that had anything to do with bringing the local language into English around topics that were familiar to the children in Ethiopia. And so here's one about Deborah gets water. And so, Deborah, wake up, we need to go get water, said Mom. And so then here we go, Deborah sees one monkey on the way to the water hole. And so there's the monkey, the giraffes, ostriches, zebras, pelicans, lions, flamingos, fish. The water hole, she arrives and helps her mother collect water, and there they are gathering the water. And so that is just another way. What is something that's needed by someone that maybe your class can work together to create something to bring that local base of knowledge? And then level 5 is a whole different level. That's inside out school. The community becomes the school. Students are doing the real work to make the community better. This is kind of like the outward bound schools. A friend of mine runs an outward bound school in Washington, D.C. And when they bought their school, the only place for a playground was on the roof. And so every grade had a totally different topic about the roof. So one grade was researching swings and having the engineers in there, and that takes up too much room. Wait, we need to not put swings because then we wouldn't be able to have anything else. And so all kinds of things that they were thinking about. What theme should it have by the little ones? And the 8th graders were doing some other topic about the actual workings of the different playground tools. So that is something that's really far up there, and you almost need to be in a school that's thinking that way. Now, back to my example. This work became part of Carnegie Foundation there in Menlo Park, and they have a wonderful program for teachers to just grow in what they do in teaching. So this is students looking beyond themselves, becoming invested members of their community. So first they decided what would the community want? They surveyed the community, they connected it to policymakers. And I was like I said, I was very pleased with that. I wasn't sure at that point if it would ever go anywhere, but it was really nice for the kids to have something that was I really made it connect to the community and the curriculum and the standards that I needed to meet. But something came up later on that summer to where a place that I would bring the students for Mother's Day weekend to do tide pooling. We'd take the boat across Ketchikan Bay. We would do tide pooling. We would do hiking in the rainforest and big spaghetti dinners and camping, and just they always loved it. Well, this place was about to be closed over some technicality, and it was on the agenda. I called some parents and said, do you think any of your students would be interested in speaking on behalf of Peterson Bay Research Education Center? And the parents were all like, well, let me check. And all the students, we sat on the corner outside the Borough building for hours. Our agenda item did not come up till 11 o'clock. Now you have to know in the summer it's pure daylight. We were sitting there in the corner just talking and hanging out. And finally they said, oh, your time has come up. And my students went in there and they spoke so beautifully in support of Peterson Bay, of how it impacted their lives. And they voted to keep it. And I visited Peterson Bay with some friends last summer. It's still going strong and helping students all over Alaska and students who come up from Michigan, all over the place. So it's a beautiful place. And it was a key moment there. And I was so proud of my students. They weren't stopping there. They saw that they had a voice and that they could make a difference in another way. And so anyway, there's Madison speaking. But I had students speaking there. Some of my students were on IEPs and could not read and really were struggling. And they spoke so clearly and reading off what they had written. We had written up the things. And so it was just really an exciting thing to be. And once again, we went from ourselves to our classrooms, to our school, to our community, and even beyond our community to the region. And it doesn't take much. And so anyway, one or two more examples, I'm almost done. But an analysis of highway litter, Whitehorse, Yukon, Canada. These students were thinking that we Alaskans who use the Alaskan highway going up this way from the lower 48, that we were the ones doing all the trash in their community. But they did a survey in the summer and the winter, and they realized they had even more trash in the winter, and it was the local Canadians. So they said, wait, most of this is McDonald's. So they went to the McDonald's, they ordered 1 cup of coffee, and they laid out all the pieces of trash. And they realized there were like 14 pieces of trash. And they said, wait a minute, look at what you're doing to the environment. So that McDonald's owner worked to reduce the amount of waste, and McDonald's across the country then went to reduce what they put into these bags with 1 cup of coffee. So you just never know. So this is a video that's not working. They're working very hard. Newsleah is trying very hard to fix this video. And so it will have the link on there for you. So maybe it'll be open one of these days. But this is a project where the students read an article about this little boy who got a prosthetic arm from a doctor who was making these. And they said, oh, we have a teacher who got her hand caught in the laminator and she lost her arm. She lost her hand halfway up her arm. And she doesn't have an arm. Maybe we could contact that doctor. So they wrote to the doctor, and not only was that doctor so impressed of students writing him, he came to the classroom and then he invited them to his office so he could show them how to make the arm. And then they encouraged him, and then he said, you know what, let's make an arm for your teacher. So they brought her in, they did the testing, and in the video, it shows her at the end with her little arm, and she had it made a zebra stripe because she likes zebras. And the kids are all crying, the teachers are crying, the parents are crying because they never had any idea. And even the doctor talks about who knew that students could have such a voice. You just never know what can happen. And so anyway, and those were fifth graders. Anyway, links to your curriculum. How do you think about this? You have all summer. You've been online and remote. We've all been online and remote. Like, you have time now to explore the trails that are finally opening up, to walk and think, what could I possibly do? And I will have to say that when I showed this to my graduate science class, one of my students said, you know something? Really, what I should do is just ask the students, what could we do to help somebody during this remote learning time? He said, I'll see what they think. And so sometimes it works that way, but sometimes they need a little seed too, some little way of thinking about it. And sometimes it just pops up. Like I said, you never know. But anyway, what are you already doing? And think about it has to be something you're passionate about too. What is something that you love and adore that really kind of connects to the curriculum? So anyway, types of place-based activities or project-based. And one thing I have to say, when I have principals call me and interviewing me about a teacher they maybe want to hire, they will ask me, do you think this is a teacher that might embrace project-based learning? And I'll say, oh, yes, because I've seen the kind of projects they've done when they've taught in the schools, etc. So this is something that schools are trying to move toward, to make those standards, those standards that are so sterile or just distant sometimes. How can you make that come alive and really do something? So anyway, ways you can do this: do it yourself school projects, community gardens, shelters for community needs, activities that resonate with community culture. Maybe they reinforce or explore cultural values, roots, and ties to the land. So maybe in Alaska, we have Fish and Game and Fish and Wildlife. What's a local, the trustees, Mass Audubon. We have wonderful things here in the Merrimack Valley region. Also, one other thing on this community culture, that's where that StoryCorps there from Library of Congress comes in. What are the cultural roots of your community? So we'll add the StoryCorps in there. Activities that monitor the environment. My students did Adopt a Stream for years. We were doing Adopt a Stream and we were comparing it with a teacher that I had connected with in Australia. And so we were comparing what's the daylight difference, what's the temperature like, what's the dissolved oxygen and turbidity and all of those things around a stream monitoring, and what kinds of things are they doing to protect the environment compared to us? Whatever you do, how can you maybe think about even looking at planting a tree in your yard, in your schoolyard, and monitoring that and the shade that maybe it brings so you can go outside and read a book together. Arts in the community. What kind of community activity through performance, visual arts, written word? What could you do with your class? And maybe working together. I always worked with the first grade teachers, and we went to Adopt a Stream together, or we would do programs together. Maybe you can work with your music teacher or the art teacher and do some kind of project. I know that I've seen my daughter's fourth grade teacher, the art teacher had talked about, or one teacher had talked about the power of comics, and my daughter was bored. But then the art teacher, the art teacher talked about comic books, and we're going to make comic books today. And my daughter was like, I don't like comic books; those are for boys. But then the librarian read a book with it was a story where the grandfather and the little boy come out and they aren't getting along, but then they begin to come along through their drawings and they suddenly create these worlds, and it's in comic book format. And my daughter was like, I can't wait to write my comic book. Mm-hmm. So how can you work together with whatever people we still have left come fall, all those specialists, to try and come up with a way to inspire them through different aspects? And community action projects. What kind of projects can we do with the community and beyond, especially if we're still in remote learning or if we're gradually coming out of it? Every day is different. Maybe there's something that we think of. There's all kinds of beautiful ideas out there. What can we bring into our classrooms and still make it connect to the community? And so I'm not going to read this to you. I wanted to highlight for you, though, that Apple Education considers this one of its key elements of learning, to get real-world engagement, that it's important for students to do real-world investigations. And so we will probably post this in this, you could read that if you wanted, but I was very excited when I saw that they realized the power of getting kids really to look more deeply into their curriculum and think about it. Here's one way that a middle school teacher had done it, where the kids talked about their worries about the violence that was in their community, and they wrote it down on Post-its. And then they said, well, let's divide these Post-its into the key topics. And where they have police and TV, social media, divorce, all sorts of things here. And then they started saying, well, we have a lot of people who are interested in this section down here. Well, what of these particular Post-its is something that we maybe could address? It can be the smallest thing on there. Take something that you're comfortable with. It might grow into something more, but take something that's manageable, that the kids can be a part of, that maybe you can bring parents into, but you have to talk it over with the kids. Well, would that one really be possible? Like the water slides in the pool in Alaska, work with the kids and talk with them. So that was their concern, and that's where they were going. One thing that I did this semester, as we had to suddenly jump into online learning, was have my students, we talked about it, but we put together projects after I talked with some of the science coordinators in local districts. What would be helpful for you? So we put together Google Slides, we found out was the best medium, to about 10 to 20 Google Slides around one specific topic. So like, here's one, let's learn about spring. And so in there, they look at bird calls, they look at different bird nests, they look at different bird calls with the, I can't even think of it, when they can see it on the bird call, how the sound changes visually. I can't think of the word at the moment, but anyway, so these students, there's a whole collection of all of my undergrads, my graduates, and then even my children's lit and social studies put together some. And the children's lit and social studies, I almost call that candy because it's all kinds of topics. So look at the link. Actually, let's see if I can get to the link here just so you can get a sense of what they are. They range from kindergarten all the way up to 7th grade. And so it was part of our online program. So we have Force in Motion. Some of them are specifically 1 grade. They're around 1 or 2 standard, but sometimes that standard can go around 2 or 3 different grades. Mm-hmm. And when they're going through it, you'll see that they have little places where they can go noodle or something that's related to it. They'll sing a song, they'll dance, or for the little ones, the older ones, they do some things. So we have plants. This one right here, actually, Rebecca and Jen, is all about plants, and it's more for a teacher guide. But the rest of these are more for the students, and they're meant to be sort of independent, but not necessarily, maybe some help from the parents. One of my students did, what is it like to run a small business with COVID? Next place over down along toward Boston. Here are my undergraduates. All of them start with some sort of sense making. What is this picture? What does this make you think of? What, just to engage their thinking before they get into the little investigations. The investigations are simple things that you can do at home. We have Force in Motion, World of Materials, Sound, Push and Pull, Traits, Force in Motion, Astronomy Units, and Distance Final. Honestly, this 4th grade one could go all the way into middle school. They did such an amazing job with that piece. Sound and light waves, beautiful things. Push and Pull, How the Earth Changes, Weathering and Erosion, Ways to Stay Active. They even got the Merrimack football players, soccer players, you name it, to give little exercises. How to be a good neighbor, creative writing, how to even just do it step by step, a healthier you for nutrition, biological unity and diversity, adventures through Latin America. He was able to get teachers to, or he got authors from Latino countries to share their books with him and have them read online. And so he did Central America, Caribbean islands, and South America, the Hispanic culture, which I believe is a 6th or 7th grade standard. Colors, community engagement, family fitness. Community engagement's on there twice. We'll get that off there. And then easy snacks for kids, and let's learn about spring. So the students put a lot of work into these. Check them out. See if maybe it can help you out as a teacher. And 2 or 3 more slides here. When I think about this, I really like this image because here's your comfort zone. Here is where you are now. And as you have your open house and you say, who might we be able to invite in? And maybe you have a little speaker come in. Maybe you look at something online on a virtual trip. Maybe your students go on a little trip somewhere. Maybe it becomes a project. Well, maybe something's going on. And maybe it's only something small this year. Like we just came up with the finding that there's nowhere to gather as a community. There's no parks for kids along the river. That was our complete finding in 3rd grade. And that was a big finding to present to the community. And so, and then later it grew to that. So just something to think about. The magic happens when you just keep pushing on it. Kind of like that project-based learning definition, the project-based learning where it said it's just over time. It keeps building and growing. And so getting started, next steps, keep an eye out for opportunities. Maybe as you are looking at things over the summer, maybe you see a new place to go to or talk with people. Make the community your classroom. Ask for input from community members, families, even the students have ideas. Stay on target. Try to keep those learning objectives forefront. That's important because then you can share with your principal and your other teachers this is still grounded. Use the resources you have. What stream, oral history, agriculture, community garden, other. Maybe you get the community gardeners. There's a beautiful group of community gardeners, master gardeners here that I think that would love to come talk with students. And be flexible. It doesn't always go well. We don't always have the right materials or or a person comes in and maybe says something that's not exactly on your agenda. Sometimes it's helpful to send a letter to the person who's going to speak to say, here's what we're studying. Here are some of the questions the students might have, just to get them in the right kind of frame of mind. But anyway, just be flexible. And then what can you and your class bring to your community? Believe in yourself. And just enjoy, you'll be amazed. Don't think about it all the time, but maybe sometime this summer you'll think, this is one area I might be able to do something with. And always know that you can email me. I will talk with you. I will brainstorm with you. I love brainstorming. And so don't worry about that. You still have me as a resource. So with that, let me escape. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that was helpful.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know if, are you able to end your screen share so we can have our...
Yes.
Yay, oh, there you are. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I loved all of the real life experiences and the student projects, both the undergraduate and grad levels. I'm trying to get that onto our Mint's website, but it is on our Mint's Facebook page. If you search the @ Mint's Merrimack, you'll be able to access that link, but I can also attach it below. And so I'll have all of those field trips below. I'll have our Mint's email. I'll have your email if you're open for that. And really any of the links that we wanted you to see. But yeah, so that concludes this video. So thank you so much for joining us. You're literally leaving for Alaska in under 48 hours. So I so appreciate your time and just, you know, getting all of your experiences and knowledge out to all of our educators. So as always, we're here for you educators. Thank you for all you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, you're
here.
Yes.
And yeah, keep in touch with us and we'll see what we can do to help you all throughout the summer and obviously into the next academic year.
That's so, right. I wish you the best.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.